Brittany Commisso, the executive assistant who filed a criminal complaint against Governor Cuomo, is speaking publicly for the first time in an exclusive interview with CBS this morning and the Times-Union. She says the governor should be charged with the crime. This comes a week after a report released by New York Attorney General Letitia James accused the governor of sexually harassing 11 women.
I'm joined here today by Ann Clark and June Kim to announce the findings of their investigation into allegations of sexual harassment made against Governor Andrew Cuomo.
The stunning results of the Attorney General's investigation.
Investigators allege he sexually harassed 11 women, many of them young.
The most serious was the governor's unwelcome physical contact with women, including touching intimate body parts.
Investigators say an employee who they identified as Executive Assistant Number 1 endured repeated physical violations.
The governor held her so closely that her breasts were pressed against his body, and he sometimes ran his hands up and down her back while he did so.
His legal challenges are mounting by the day.
She filed a formal report alleging criminal conduct against the governor. The conduct was sexual in nature.
That is just not who I am, and that's not who I have ever been. This just did not happen.
It is a remarkable fall from grace for the governor, who drew national acclaim for his daily briefings in the early days of the pandemic.
Resign! Get out!
The people have spoken.
I would hope he would resign.
I hope he's prosecuted.
The leaders have spoken.
I think he should resign.
It's time to go.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jericka.
Brittany,
nice to meet you.
One current employee, who we identify as Executive Assistant Number 1, endured repeated physical violations.
What are you referred to in the report?
As Executive Assistant Number 1. I am an executive assistant in the governor's office, but I am also Brittany Commisso. I am a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, and I'm a human being. I'm a woman, and I have a voice, and now I've decided to use it.
There are 11 complainants whose allegations are set forth in great detail in the report. 9 of them are or were employed by the state of New York or a state-affiliated entity.
To me, this was a dream job, and it unfortunately turned into a nightmare.
As set forth in the report, we find that the governor, on numerous occasions, engaged in conduct that constitutes unlawful sex-based harassment.
You told investigators that throughout 2020, the governor would request hugs?
Yes.
And they were very intimate?
Yes.
Explain.
I would say that, the more that I noticed that I was being called to the mansion more. After the first few times of me helping with the speeches, they would say, Brittany, the governor would like you to go over to the mansion and assist. And I took it as, wow, I must be doing a good job. If I had not been doing a good job, then the governor wouldn't be calling you again. So I took it as a sign that I was doing a good job, not that he thought that I was attractive, not that I thought anything other than I was proud of myself.
But then you say he kissed you at one point.
Well, there was a point when there were times that he would then start getting up and to hug me goodbye. And the hugs at first were hugs, and then they were hugs when he would pull me close to the point where he could feel my breast on his chest. And when those would happen, obviously I knew that these weren't normal hugs. These were not hugs that he would give his mother or, his brother. Then they started to be hugs with kisses on the cheek. And then there was at one point a hug. And then when he went to go kiss me on the cheek, he quickly turned his head and he kissed me on the lips.
What did you say?
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything this whole time. People don't understand that this is the governor of the state of New York. There are troopers that are outside of the mansion and there are some mansion staff. Those troopers that are there, they are not there to protect me. They are there to protect him. I felt as though if I did something to insult him, especially insult him in his own home, it wasn't going to be him that was going to get fired or in trouble. It was going to be me. And I felt as though if I said something, that no, who was going to believe me?
What happened on December 31st, 2019?
On December 31st, 2019, I was asked, like I had, to go over to the mansion to help the governor with a State of the State speech. And yes, it was New Year's Eve. I wasn't there late. I did my final edit, and while I was upstairs in the office, the governor said, "Why don't we take a selfie?"
So his suggestion, you say?
Yes. With my right hand, I took the selfie. I then felt, while taking the selfie, his hand go down my back onto my butt, and he started rubbing it. Not sliding it, not, quickly brushing over it, rubbing my butt. I became so nervous that my hands were clearly shaking, and a lot of the photos that I was snapping were completely blurry. And when he said, "Can I see them?" I showed him them, and he said, "Oh, those aren't good, obviously." And he said, "Why don't we go sit on the couch, and we can take a better one."
So you sat on the couch?
I do. So we sat down on the couch, and in the photo, I have my arm, wrapped around his shoulder, almost as if, we were taking a picture with a buddy. And I got a clear photo sitting down, and that is the one that has been blurred out, that has been now released to the public.
Were you confiding in anyone? Did you tell any friends? Did you text message anyone?
I did not. I didn't tell anybody. I was scared. I thought that if I had said something, that I was either going to be transferred or fired. I didn't think that anyone would believe me. This was my dream job. This was something that I had worked so hard for. And I just thought, if I have to sit here and take it and keep my mouth shut, then that's what I'm going to do.
I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances.
In the executive mansion, the governor hugged executive assistant number 1 and reached under her blouse to grab her breast. This was the culmination of a pattern of inappropriate sexual conduct.
I did what any investigator would do, which is I reconstructed the events of that day. And this woman's story, which is stated as fact in the report, is false. The governor deserves to be treated fairly, and he must be. That did not happen here. This was one-sided, and he was ambushed.
Take me back to November of 2020.
I had gotten a call from Stephanie Benton, his personal, I would say, right-hand executive assistant. She had called that day and said, "Brittany, do you mind coming over to the mansion and send something from the governor's iPhone to my iPhone?" I walked myself in, said, "Governor, I'm here." He handed me his cell phone. I did it, and I said, "Okay, Governor, are you all set? Do you need anything else?" He said no. And, he said, "How's everything at the office? How's work? How are you?" Small talk, I would say. I said, "Fine." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to the Capitol." And that was when I got up. He came around for a hug.
You came around for a hug, or he came around for a hug?
No, he came around for a hug.
Okay.
And I could tell immediately when he hugged me, it was in probably the most sexually aggressive manner than any of the other hugs. It was then that I said, "Governor, you're going to get us in trouble." And I thought to myself, that probably wasn't the best thing to say, but at that time I was so afraid that one of the mansion staff that was downstairs, that they were going to come up and see this and think, oh, you know, is that what she comes here for? And that's not what I came there for, and that's not who I am. And I was terrified of that. And when I said that, he walked over, shut the door so hard, I thought for sure someone downstairs must think, they must think if they heard that, what is going on? Came back to me, and that's when he put his hand up my blouse and cupped my breast over my bra. I exactly remember looking down, seeing his hand, which is a large hand, thinking to myself, oh my God, this is happening. It happened so quick. He didn't say anything. When I stopped it, he just pulled away and walked away.
Executive Assistant number 1 had vowed that she was going to take these violations, as she put it, to the grave.
So I'm Brendan Lyons. I am the Capital and Investigations Editor for the Times-Union in Albany, New York, and I have worked for this newspaper since 1998. The story of Andrew Cuomo. That is a complicated one.
Congratulations, Governor.
Democrat Andrew Cuomo was sworn into the job his father Mario once held in New York.
He is a natural leader. I was the HUD secretary. I had a lot of fun doing that. But I really love what I'm doing now. And I am focused on being the best governor that I can be.
He had a year in 2020 that was, by his standards, pretty magnificent.
There is good news in what we're seeing. We brought the spread down dramatically. Today is Saturday.
His handling of the COVID-19 pandemic was being watched by the nation.
Put a mask on it.
Governor Cuomo has projected an air of much-needed competence during the epidemic, and the people are there for it.
He's doing what any president should do.
His star was rising. There was even talk about him running for president.
The Democrats would like to see me replace Joe Biden on the ticket. That is, on one hand, flattering. On the other hand, it is irrelevant. But to the extent it's flattering, I appreciate it.
And then in December, there was a tweet that sort of changed everything.
A former aide to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is accusing him of sexual harassment. In a series of tweets yesterday, 36-year-old Lindsay Boylan said Cuomo harassed her for years.
And that really started to change the direction of his public persona.
Lindsay Boylan writes that when she was in a one-on-one meeting with the governor in 2018, he stepped in front of me and kissed me on the lips.
In February, the wheels really start to come off when, out of nowhere, Lindsay Boylan does something that's pretty smart. She publishes her own account, her own first-person account of the details of what she said went on in Medium.
A 25-year-old former executive assistant to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is now the second woman coming forward claiming he sexually harassed her.
Looking back on all of this, how would you describe Governor Cuomo?
He is a textbook abuser. He lets his temper and his anger rule the office, but he was very sweet to me for a year in the hopes that maybe one day when he came on to me, I would think we were friends, or that it was appropriate, or that it was okay.
The vaccine is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Coronavirus for him is still, look at the shiny object over here. But he knows he has to address these harder questions about the sexual harassment. But then on March 3rd is when he makes the statement that he had never touched anyone inappropriately.
I want you to know this from me directly. I never touched anyone inappropriately. I never touched anyone inappropriately. I never knew at the time that I was making anyone feel uncomfortable.
And that's what pushed Brittany Commisso over the edge that day in her office. And she became emotional. And it started to unravel at that point.
It was just the way that he looked at the camera, and he almost has this smirk that he thinks that he's untouchable. I almost feel like he has this sense of almost a celebrity status. And that was the tipping point. I broke down. I said, he's lying. I felt like he was personally saying it to me, that I never touched anyone inappropriately. And yes, you did. Yes, you have. And not only yes, but one of them is me. And that's when I broke down. I told my coworkers a little bit.
And there were two people you told this to at the time?
Yes.
So the two colleagues that are friends of hers realized when they came back to work that Monday morning, at least one of them, that they were obligated to report this incident under state law. And it was the reporting of that to the general counsel's office or a supervisor, and then to the general counsel's office. And I had started to get wind of this allegation at that point, and were able to verify what had happened and published our first story with her allegations. And my understanding is that she didn't even know the story was coming until it was published as well. So I think it took her by surprise. And then after that story, I realized who her attorney was. He reached out to me and said, "You wrote this story. I represent her." And I started conversing with him, and then it took several weeks of back and forth to convince him to allow her to have us tell her story. And when she did tell us that story that we published, it was sort of like an atom bomb going off in the administration.
The facts are much different than what has been portrayed.
She has accused Governor Cuomo of sexual assault. The governor has repeatedly denied that ever took place. And quite frankly, when she first raised this in early March, he was stunned. Me and my team went through the emails for that day, all the entrance and exit records, and this woman's story, which is stated as fact in the report, is false. The documentary evidence does not support what she said.
There is another complaint I want to address from a woman in my office who said that I groped her in my home office. Let me be clear, that never happened.
Everywhere he turns now, he went from top of the world Ma to everywhere he goes, there's a scandal now that's erupting under his feet.
More revelations. The Cuomo administration undercounted nursing home deaths.
It is a lie to say any numbers were inaccurate.
New York State Controller Tom DiNapoli has asked the AG to investigate whether Cuomo used state resources in the writing and promotion of his book.
Spokesman Rich Azzopardi calling the book probe patently absurd.
You know, Rome is crumbling. It's not just him.
The governor and his senior team took actions to retaliate against at least one former employee for coming forward with her story.
When the tweet from Lindsey Boylan was sent out, and we now know and had heard then, we knew from being reporters on the ground that the governor's office was seeking to undermine her credibility. They were fighting back. They were involved with this effort to essentially smear this person. That effort now shows really what goes on behind Cuomo's office. The allegations in the report that there was systemic cover-up and mishandling of the sexual harassment allegations is one that I believe is going to come back to haunt this administration. Probably more than the sexual harassment on the governor.
We find that the culture within the executive chamber contributed to the conditions that allowed the governor's sexually harassing conduct to occur and to persist. Well, what was the culture? Words that witnesses have used repeatedly to describe it include toxic, hostile, abusive.
There was a time when between my personal life and this, it was too much. People don't understand. You know, it's the governor of the state of New York. He is a professional fighter, and I think people should know that it hasn't been easy. And I apologize that I haven't come forward sooner. I hope that the other women understand and that I've seen them and I support them and I thank them. Because without them, I don't know if I would have come forward.
Why now? What was your motivation for speaking out? And do you think about your daughter and setting an example for her when you made that decision?
I definitely do. I was scared. Even though I knew that I had support, you still feel alone. I was afraid that if I had come forward and revealed my name, that the governor and his enablers, I like to call them, would viciously attack me, would smear my name, as I had seen and heard them do before to people. One of the reasons why I wanted to remain anonymous was actually for her. I wanted to protect her, and I didn't want her to have to deal with anything that came along with this. But then I also, after a couple of months and processing this whole thing, I do want her to know that she has a voice. I never want her to be afraid to speak. I never want her to be afraid of any person in power, a man or a woman.
He is a man on an island, you know, and high tide's coming. And the legislature has the votes and appears to have the wherewithal to move forward with impeachment. And Democrats in the legislature are leading that charge right now. So it's Judgment Day seems to be coming for the governor.
The legal troubles are deepening for New York's embattled Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Governor Cuomo, already in a political firestorm, could now face a criminal one.
I had a female victim come forward, which had to be the hardest thing she's ever done in her life, and make an allegation of criminal conduct against the governor.
You filed a criminal complaint with the sheriff's office recently. Why did you file that criminal complaint with the sheriff's office?
Because it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. The governor needs to be held accountable.
Should he be charged with a crime?
Yes.
So you would like to see the governor of New York State prosecuted for groping you?
I would. I would like to see the governor held accountable because he's gotten away with so much for so long.
And just so I'm clear again, being held accountable to you means seeing the governor charged with a crime.
What he did to me was a crime. He broke the law.
I am inspired by all the brave women who came forward. But more importantly, I believe them.
It's been a really hard couple of months. It's been, even though I've remained anonymous, and even though the governor's council and his team have said that, you know, the women who still work there are protected and there's no retaliation, and it's different.
Why not quit? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you quit your job?
Because I liked my job. I still like my job. There are some amazing people that work on that second floor that do a good job and have the right intentions every single day. I do go to work every single day.
If the governor's watching right now, what would you say to him?
I would say, that's interesting. I would say, I think about this. There was a speech that he gave less than a month ago. And in his speech, to paraphrase what he said, if you give New Yorkers the truth, and you give New Yorkers the facts, the good, the bad, the ugly,
Get the truth.
they will do the right thing.
They will do the right thing.
I would say, Governor, this is the truth, these are the facts, and it's your turn to do the right thing. And that right thing is to resign and to tell the truth.